How's everyone doing? My name is Josh Eames, and this is my individual presentation on an article I chose called It's Time to Pay the Tab for America's College Athletes. This was an article written by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kind of a discussion of the article and issue. The article is based on college athletes and whether or not they should be paid salaries. The author of the article is a really famous basketball player named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He played college basketball at UCLA and 20 seasons in the NBA, which is a long time, basically 20 years as a professional athlete. He won a whole lot. He was a 6-time NBA champion, 19-time All-Star, and he's the NBA's all-time leading scorer. So this is a truly iconic sports athlete, and so he knows a lot about sports and athletics, and he chooses to voice his opinion a lot on a website called KareemAbdulJabbar.com/articles. He gives his thoughts, and he voices his opinion on lots of different issues about sports and also about civil rights, and really takes the time to use his voice to write about different issues. The main arguments of this particular article about it's time to pay the tab for America's college athletes is he says, and he argues that college athletes in large Division I programs should receive a salary. He says they should be paid for what they do on the field and in the gym. Another one of his arguments is a supporting argument for this fact is that everyone but the athletes profit from their athletic performance, and that's illogical and unethical. So the coaches are paid, and the television broadcasters are paid, and the NCAA is paid, and the colleges are paid for everything that these athletes do, yet they don't receive a penny, which is unfair to him and unfair to a lot of the athletes. I basically talked about that in the third argument as well, is that the coaches make millions of dollars in salaries and bonuses, but some of these college athletes, have a hard time scrounging by because they're not working jobs, they're playing sports full time, and they're going to school at college full time, and that can be really difficult for some of these athletes. So those are sort of the main arguments of this article, that it's time to pay the tab for America's college athletes. Analysis of the argument, he uses a lot of his personal experience as a college athlete, saying how he was poor and how it was hard for him to get by in college, not earning a salary for all the work that he did as a basketball player for the college and for all the fans. In his article, he uses a lot of stats talking about the massive revenue generated by the athletics by these athletes, yet they don't receive any money for it, which is sad to think about. And then towards the end of the article, he talks about he analyzes a little bit the counter argument to why athletes shouldn't be paid, and I'd like to read just part of this quote. It says, "Some apologists claim that the value of the scholarships, training, and other considerations give the players $50,000 to $100,000 a year in value." And so, what the counter argument to not paying college athletes is basically, well, we're not gonna pay them, but we're gonna pay for their college, we're gonna pay for all their athletics, for all their gear and everything that they use on the field, and we're gonna train them, the coaching, which costs money, yet they don't receive a salary, which can be hard for these athletes because if they don't come from wealthy families, then they don't have a way to pay for a lot of things, and so that can be hard for some of these athletes. But I really liked in his article how Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the author, kind of paid homage to how he talked a little bit about the counter argument towards his argument in this article. Perspective and bias. The author's article, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he definitely is biased coming from the sports side. He himself was an athlete. He played lots of basketball, lots of sports at college and pro level, so that's his perspective and his bias. Right now, he's also a sports analyst. He talks a lot about sports daily, and his opinion is valued by many. And so that's sort of the perspective that he's coming off of. The intended audience of this article is pretty clear. He really wants the eyes and ears opened of the NCAA. He really wants the executives at the NCAA stands for National College Athletic Association, and so he wants those in charge of college athletics to understand all the work and the hours that these college athletes put into their sports and athletics, yet they aren't paid a salary. And they also have to go to college full time. And so that can be really hard, and especially if they're poor athletes in college, then they have a hard time getting by. And so that's the intended audience, is the NCAA, the executives there. And he's also talking to, I believe, the fans. I went ahead and added a picture of some fans at a college basketball game. Fans just like me, just like you, if you're a fan of college basketball, college football, college baseball, softball, volleyball, whatever it is, if you're a fan of college sports, you need to know that the coaches, the NCAA, the television broadcasters, the television networks, they all get paid large amounts of money for what these athletes do. Yet, the athletes don't get paid at all. And so he's really trying to get that out there, which is why fans and the NCAA are the intended audiences. Rhetorical Appeals to Logos, Ethos, and Pathos. He talks about how it's illogical that coaches are paid, how the coaches of these football teams, basketball teams, are paid millions of dollars, and yet these players aren't paid a dime for all that they do. And they're really the stars of the show. They're really the ones on the court, on the field, and yet the coaches make so many millions of dollars. And so that's illogical. That's his appeal to the logos. Kareem's credibility, the author's credibility, comes from himself as being a professional athlete for so many years and being a college athlete, really knowing so much about sports, being an icon. And so a lot of people value his opinion. And Pathos, he uses a personal experience from himself in college, winning a lot of basketball games, and then, hearing thousands of fans chant his name every night, and then going back to his dorm and scrounging up a couple of, scrounging up some change, he says, to buy a burger just to feed himself. And so that was his appeal to Pathos. I feel like he wanted us to feel sorry for him, that he was really popular and he was doing a good thing and winning games for the college, yet he wasn't getting paid for it. And so I think that's his appeal to Pathos, Ethos, and Logos, his rhetorical appeals. I started with the weak points of the argument. The main one for me is that the article never provides a solution or an effective way in which college athletes should be paid. The author never provides a solution. He never says, college athletes should be paid a percentage of the revenue, or he never says they should be paid hourly based on the hours they put into their sport. He never gives a solution. He basically just rants on about how they should, he basically rants on about that they should be paid. More of the why and not really the how. And so I thought that was a weak point. He has some other weak points in there, talking about another one that I thought was especially weak was in the opening paragraph. His tone, saying that he kind of says, I've been at this issue, I've been writing about this article for decades and nothing's ever changed, but kind of here I go again. I'm going to write about it again. I felt like if he came out stronger saying, this is something that really needs to be changed, this is how we're going to do it, this is why we should do it, I think that would have been a much better argument, or I think that could have been a stronger point to his argument in the article. But he did come out a little bit, sounding a little bit weak, a little bit defeated on his perspective. There are a lot of strong points of this article. He talks about he gives an example in one of the opening paragraphs about these boys from Thailand, how most Americans would be appalled to know that boys in Thailand are often forced to box, and they get all bloody, and they're, lots of people bet on these boxing outcomes. It's a sporting event, and lots of betting is done, and lots of revenue is generated from these boys fighting who are young, and they don't receive any money for it. And he kind of likens that to college athletes, how they put in all these hours on the court, on the field, and yet they don't receive any money for what they do. And so I thought that was a very kind of strong example, kind of pleading towards Pathos as well. in the article. And then he uses another example of a current NBA player who recounted his own experience in basketball, in college basketball when he was an athlete, and how he said he was a point guard for the team, and he says, we had some hungry nights, we went hungry sometimes. And I thought that was a strong point of the article, that he used another example from another player to kind of back up his own opinion. I thought those were some of the strong points. To kind of wrap up this invisual presentation, I had a picture of me playing high school volleyball, so I am a huge sports fan. I love college professional sports, and to be honest, I'm on the fence on whether or not I think college athletes should be paid or not. I think there is value in the argument that they should be paid for what they do as college athletes, and I also think that there's argument to say that most of these college athletes don't go into college athletics because they want to be paid. I think a lot of athletes go into it for the scholarship they earn to go to college for free, and I think a lot of them go in just because they love playing the sport. And I think that their love for the game is a lot more than them looking for a salary or looking to be paid for playing. I think they all just love to play. I think a lot of these athletes out there love to play the game, and that's why they pursue it past high school and go into the collegiate level, into college. I also believe that there's millions of viewpoints out there, millions of fans, thousands of players and coaches in college, and I think that there's just so many different viewpoints on this article. I do think, or on this topic, I should say, that college athletes should be paid. I love the article. I thought Kareem made a really nice argument for why they should be paid, and really enjoyed it. I hope you guys did too. I'll make sure to add the questions at the bottom, and can't wait to read your responses. Thank you very much. Stop recording. Oh my gosh, it's my first time using Screencast-O-Matic. Hold on. Let's see if I can stop recording.